Continued season's greetings, even though it's a day after we celebrate the holidays. In terms of the free days may be done, but the spirit of Christmas hopefully will continue to live with us for the rest of the year, remembering the reason for the season and that we should share as much as possible with our fellow man, woman, and child. That is definitely the way I see Christmas. Is a joyous family time, and I'm sure that everyone would have enjoyed their days off. I would like to continue to pray with the holidays behind us for the people of St. Martin, that you were surrounded with your loved ones, and that during this time we also think about those around us who did not have family, who did not have a full meal, or who didn't get a chance to spend this time with family because they were either repaying their debts to society or had to actually work. I pray for you. I pray for future festivities for you, and that you still try to find the blessing in each day. As I say every week, remember that there are those who are facing challenges, who have personal losses or hardships and are navigating difficult circumstances. We must, as a community, continue to lift up and pray for these people. We must be sensitive that the festivities may sometimes feel overwhelming to those of us facing loss, and that as a community, we must give each other the grace to navigate however we feel, even during this time that is normally seen as a joyful time. We cannot force joy upon persons who are feeling sad. Give them compassion, give them love, and help them to get through it. Reach out, offer a kind word, and a genuine listening ear. Sometimes that's all we need. And our community's strength is indeed in the shared joys as well as the empathy and compassion that we can show to support each other during these difficult times. With that being said, we look forward to the new year for inspiration, for prosperity, and of course, a renewed hope and growth of self, community, and this country. This is a time when we as people make the goals that we want to see manifest for ourselves and become. So I challenge each and every one to not wait until the new year, but actually think and reflect in this last week of the year on everything that has happened over your lifetime, and especially in this past year, and think about what you can do to make it better. Sometimes we look at others and we look at the community and we look at government, but sometimes it's that step internally that we need to take to say, I am going to do this differently, that will make the biggest difference for your life. So I wish you much success as we go into 2024, setting achievable goals and working step by step to achieve them.
The minister of Romy suddenly reaches there that he has a housing vision that fits, and this fits within it. This is a public-private partnership between a company using an asset that at this point in time, there's no clarity if they have the right to use the asset to build homes. Because Villanova didn't say for GB employees. You all need to read. Villanova said it's building homes for its clients. And who are its clients? Those are GB employees. Those are TLM employees, I believe the airport and another one or two companies on the island. So how in God's name do you pick up a GB asset that belongs to the company NVGB and you put it at the disposal of a pension fund to build homes for different people? Now, again, don't misunderstand me with the concept of the homes. I would support something like that always. I find it a pity that our own pension fund isn't being asked to build these homes, so the money would have stayed in St. Martin and not fly to Curacao. That's all. The Now Party is for St. Martin, not for Curacao, not for Aruba. We are for St. Martin. The people that live here, we represent. And yes, we will have a working relationship with Aruba and Curacao, but we are not going to give away our patrimony to Aruba and Curacao. We got to be clear with this, because a lot of people seem not to want to say these things and hide behind things. But I am surprised, personally, that Villanova and the management of GB would have gotten into a political stunt like this, because that's what it is. It's a political stunt. And you must understand, GB's management only recently received a report where the most critical concern was the political involvement in management and the supervisory board. And here goes management and does this. You see, now suddenly the minister's back and he in charge and he helping GB. When they were signing off the agreement between the union and management, because they came to an agreement with the CLA and all that, and the back pay and all that, he was there. But what did he say? Oh, I'm just here as an observer. Now, with Vida Nova, he's there as a supporter because it fits within his vision, his housing vision. Look, the man has no damn vision. Let's be clear. He has no vision when it comes to housing. Read his accomplishments on housing. NRPB, 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 Minister of Finance. Not he. He hasn't taken one decision when it comes to housing. He fought the St. Martin Housing Development Foundation on the floor of Parliament. And he didn't want them to get $45 million to fix and build new social homes. That is Jurendi Durant. Go back and check your records from 2021. Go back and check them out, 2020, with the trust fund and all that. Go back and check them. You all got to learn to do your homework sometimes. But I'm here for those that don't want to do it. I can go and check it for you and tell you.
At RBC, we know the roles you have to play can change quickly. Whether it's a homeowner, a new parent, today's head chef, or the family chauffeur. Whatever life asks you to be. RBC is a bank for all of you.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
It's also being said that the young people are, they're stubborn. You know, they don't want to include those with experience. You know, you go into Parliament or in a ministerial position, and I always tell them, I always say that you don't need to know your portfolio back and front, like the back of your hand, but as long as your cabinet knows the portfolio like the back of their hand, it's okay. And you learn as you go. You know, what do you say about the elders? Because you're a young one.
I'm a young one.
But there are lots of elders that have been running the country for a number of years.
One of the reasons, and I forgot to name it just now, one of the reasons for joining the National Alliance was because of the experience on the party. Okay. And I always say, not all experience is good experience, not all bad experience is bad. Yeah. But you can learn from a bad decision, you can learn from a good decision. And National Alliance has that wealth of knowledge.
So that track record.
That track record of experience, where you can take tidbits and ask for the advice. And of course, you're not going there to repeat and do everything that they did.
Of course not.
But the fact that they're there, a lot of people don't have that that information bank that they could go to or call or meet to ask these questions. And again, just because they're there doesn't mean you're there to be William Allen 2.0 or George Pantler 2.0.
Yeah.
No, but they have knowledge that others don't have. And for that knowledge to be accessible, that's also one of the reasons. Because you could be a brand new party. I've gotten that question. Darryl, you didn't go on a new party. Or you didn't start your own party. And like, okay, and then you go in thinking you know it all. You know, and when you look at your whole party, you have no one that ever ran before, no one that ever sat office before, but you come with all these answers and all these solutions. What makes these solutions realistic? You know, like, so that tootsing on your ideas, that's something that is a very underrated factor when looking at politics.
Okay. What would you like the community to know about Darryl York and him going that extra mile, if he has to get things done? Another thing we want to talk about is laws. You know, you see that not one law has been passed in the past 13 years. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know of any, you know.
You know what's so funny? I you know, on the news there was this politician that said he passed 20-something laws in the last 4 years. And in my head, I'm like, okay, you passed all these laws, but the person that was in an issue 2-3 years ago still in an issue today. So how relatable were those laws to the qualms of the people in reality? You know, you could pass a law for passing a law's sake, but is that law, how does that translate to the problems that we're experiencing out here, and who does it translate for? Does it translate for the people that already have, or does it translate better for the people that don't have? So when it comes to laws, it's easy to sit and say, hey, I'm going to bring this, I'm going to do this. And of course, I have ideas that I would like to bring to Parliament. But one of the main, if you ask anyone, any civil servant, the question like, hey, what do you think of legislation? They'll be like, hey, one, there's a lot of things that are not used. Two, there are a lot of things that mandates that are in the wrong departments, are in the wrong ministries. Three, there's no synergy. So you could, it's like a soup. You could say, I'm going to keep bringing new ingredients, but if you don't fix the ingredients that are already there, you're not making a better pot. So in 10-10-10, there were, you know, we had the landsbesluit verordening, bestuurlijke handhaving, where that's like the Bible of all legislation. And in 10-10-10, they divvy it up amongst the different ministries. Once a big plan like that is executed, a big process like that is executed, then you go 10 years, you go how many years, how many years you have you. But there's never been a reflection. There's never been a re-evaluation. The yellow tape, removing the yellow tape, as one would say, because sometimes, I mean, you've been in the government building, sometimes you want a document, and the document got to go from here all around the world and come back, and you're like, okay, actually, it could have just go right there, and, you know, the efficiency and the optimization of a lot of things.
Streamlining.
The streamlining of things, the bringing enough synergy between government and external parties for that process to go better efficiently. I think that is my main focus, aside from just bringing new legislation to muck it up more than it already is.
Now, votes in the general election in the Netherlands are still being counted, but it seems that the veteran anti-Islam politician Geert Wilders has led his PVV party to the largest share of the vote. PVV, which translates into English as freedom, is set to take around 35 of the 150 seats. That won't be enough to govern alone, and several other parties have said they won't enter a coalition with the far-right Mr. Wilders. He says the people want him to be Prime Minister.
Luister, de kiezer heeft nu gesproken.
The voters have spoken. The voters have determined that the PVV will become the largest party by far, it would be very undemocratic. And so I assume that it will not happen, that voters will be sidelined. Voters wouldn't accept that either. They'd find it terrible. I think we need to see where the common ground is, and then we need to do business with each other. Because we have to help the Netherlands move forwards. The hope of so many people is that things must change in the Netherlands, that the influx of asylum seekers will be limited, that ordinary Dutch people will have more money in their pockets again, that homes will go back to the Dutch, that the Dutch will be put in the first place again.
Well, we can go live now to our correspondent Anna Holligan in The Hague. And Anna, let's just take a step back and take stock of this moment. Just how significant is this result for the Netherlands?
Seismic, and there's no doubt the tremors will be felt in Brussels this morning. This result is a headache. If he actually manages to go ahead and become Prime Minister, to convince enough parties to work with him in coalition, it will be an absolute nightmare for the European Union. This is the Prime Minister's office just behind me here in the Dutch Parliament. The big question is who will be occupying it in a few months' time. That's as long as it could take in order to negotiate a new government. You heard Geert Wilders there talk about some of the issues that have really dominated this campaign. So, for example, migration, but talked about in pragmatic rather than inflammatory terms. The cost of living crisis, a new term, bestaanszekerheid, the security of existence, the shortage of affordable homes. And actually, during the last few days, his party surged in the polls. And if you are not familiar with Geert Wilders, he's a radical politician. He's been in Parliament for around 25 years. He's anti-Islam, anti-immigration. But we've already had a kind of indication that he may be prepared to compromise in order to convince enough parties to go into coalition with him. And you mentioned 35 seats there. We've just had an update. It's looking as though he has managed to secure 37 seats in Parliament, about 2.3 million votes. That, to put it in context, is more than the VVD, the Conservative Liberal Party of Mark Rutte, secured in the last two elections. So to say seismic is perhaps even an understatement here.
Yes, Anna, and a big challenge for the other parties in the Netherlands, because as you mentioned there, they've shunned Mr. Wilders over the years, over the decades. They now have to decide whether to support him in forming a government because he does have the popular vote, it seems.
Exactly as you say, Catherine. So that will be the real challenge now, because as Geert Wilders said last night, he can no longer be isolated, he can no longer be ignored. And if the other mainstream parties do that, they will once again be accused of ignoring the very disenfranchised, marginalised people who voted for him in the first place. There's been a huge crisis of trust in Dutch politics. He has promised to restore that. And what's really telling is that all of the coalition parties lost votes. This is a huge punishment for the coalition, whereas the populist parties, they surged. So not just Geert Wilders' PVV Freedom Party, but also a newly formed New Social Contract Party led by Pieter Omtzigt. He managed to secure, it looks like, around 20 seats. And then on the other side of the political spectrum, reflecting a polarised society, we have the Green Left Labour Alliance led by Frans Timmermans, who gave up a European Commission job to come back and lead this bloc, has also performed well. To explain what happens next, if Geert Wilders is unsuccessful in forming a new coalition, then the responsibility will fall to the next biggest party, which is looking like the Green Left Labour Alliance.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your MySZV account today and enter the virtual office of SZV. Go to szv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social health insurances.
At RBC, we know the roles you have to play can change quickly. Whether it's a homeowner, a new parent, today's head chef, or the family chauffeur. Whatever life asks you to be. RBC is a bank for all of you.
Hello, I'm Sarah Campbell. Thank you for joining us on BBC News. Russia has launched one of its biggest aerial attacks on Ukraine since the war began, killing at least 18 people in a wave of deadly explosions across the country. President Volodymyr Zelensky says 114 of 158 missiles and drones fired were shot down by Ukrainian defences. Ukraine's Air Force says it has never seen so many locations targeted simultaneously. Cities hit include Kyiv, Lviv in the west, Odessa in the south, and Dnipro, Kharkiv and Zaporizhzhia in the eastern Ukraine. A maternity hospital and shopping mall were among buildings damaged and destroyed. And Poland says a search is underway after an unidentified aerial object entered the NATO country's airspace from the direction of Ukraine at Hrubieszów. Poland's president has called an emergency meeting of security chiefs. From Kyiv, our Ukraine correspondent James Waterhouse reports.
It is, and always has been, the whole of Ukraine which is under attack. Kyiv is still Moscow's biggest prize. Air defences have improved here, but this attack proved too much.
I was woken up at 7:30 by a horrible sound. It was so frightening. The missile was flying and everything was buzzing, so noisy.
You are left in no doubt that this was a direct missile strike. The scale of the damage, the size of the blast zone, the heat caused. You're more used to seeing damage caused from falling debris when a missile is intercepted, but this reflects the scale of this Russian attack. And scenes like this are being replicated right across Ukraine. A lucky escape in Kharkiv in the northeast. This city is familiar with missile strikes, but not 20 in a single morning. A shopping centre in Dnipro in the east, as well as a maternity hospital, were hit. It didn't stop there. This is the port city of Odessa in the south, where a residential block was struck. Even in Lviv in the west, which is usually spared the worst of this invasion, wasn't immune this time. Ukraine's Air Force says it has never seen so many missiles. In a war where Moscow routinely strikes cities it can't occupy, that is saying something.
Well, joining me now is Olga Ivshina from the BBC's Russian service. Hello to you, Olga. I mean, we saw there from James's report the intensity, the scale of these attacks hasn't been seen for many, many months. Death and injury tolls have been rising throughout the past few hours. What's the latest that you can tell us?
Yes, the death toll is rising almost every hour, unfortunately. And I think it's a very sad and very somber reminder of ambitions of Mr. Putin and of the fact that this war is far from being over and far from being quiet. Despite the standstill, so to say, on the front line, we haven't seen any sufficient breakthroughs in the past few months. But this strike shows that Putin's ambitions are still there. And also this shows the thought which some experts have been voicing for a while, that Russia may be preparing for more strikes in winter, because these winter strikes, they put more pressure on Ukrainian infrastructure, on the Ukrainian economy, also on the psychology of ordinary Ukrainians. They make day-to-day life way harder, especially bearing in mind that it's very cold currently in Kiev. It's minus temperatures, and also for Putin's audience, so to say, in Russia, it also sends a message that he is still in the game. He still has those ambitions, and maybe he tries to project an image that he is still in control, especially for the audience within the country. Because if you ask ordinary Russians, there is not that much for them to remember during this 2023 year, and these strikes may just, he hopes, may project an image that he is still strong, because next year he has a presidential elections come.
Okay, Olga Ivshina from the BBC's Russian service, thank you. Joining me now is Dr. Precious Chatterjee Doody, Senior Lecturer in Politics and International Studies at the Open University. Hello to you, thank you for your time. What do you make of the timing of this?
Well, the timing's very interesting because the sort of immediate timing is directly after a pretty dramatic Ukrainian hit on a Russian warship in Crimea, which unusually the Russian leadership did acknowledge had happened. But of course, the sheer scale and coordinated nature of these missile attacks makes it clear that it's been in the offing for quite some time. So I think it's part of a broader trend with the Russian leadership to attempt to attack infrastructural targets right at the worst point of winter, both to make sure that they have the greatest impact in a practical sense, but also to create a sort of psychological resonance, because people will be struggling with the aftermath of this attack, of course.